Good evening. Hope everybody's coping all okay tonight. I'm gonna talk about lust. Um, I was just thinking to myself that growing up very spiritual and religious, um, and when it comes to biblical standpoints, they tell you that lust is a sin, right? Um, but I feel that I heard that lust is only a sin if you're lusting after a married woman. But one thing I will say about um, when you're raised a certain way, you know, you can be shamed for something that's natural. Now, my grandfather told me when I was a kid that lust was normal. Um, I don't think lust is bad. I mean, religion it always tries to suppress your normal desires and tell you that things that are normal is wrong. As a man, it is normal for you to desire a woman. That's just normal. That's healthy. Um, that's why I say lusting after a woman, in my personal opinion, I feel is normal. But when you're raised a certain way, you'll be feeling guilty for something that's normal. And that's how I was in my younger days, feeling guilty over something that's completely normal. Um, it is perfectly normal for you to desire a woman as a man. It is perfectly normal for you to have urges as a man. Like, you know, it's nothing to feel guilty about, you know. But when you're raised a certain way, you will be feeling guilty about something that's normal. Um, I'm just glad that I have a clear understanding of lust now, because I think when I was young growing up, I didn't have a clear understanding of lust. And lust is a normal thing, especially for a man. I mean, you see an attractive woman, you're going to lust, you're going to desire her, you're going to want to be intimate. That's just normal. Um, I don't see the crime, but when you're raised a certain way, it can make you feel that you're committing a crime when you're not even committing a crime. I mean, you gotta, you got a lot of guys who have been brainwashed into suppressing their sexuality. And that's what being raised religious does. Um, you're taught to suppress something that's normal. You know, it is perfectly normal for a man to desire a female, you know. Um, I don't think, I don't think especially when you're an adolescent and you're growing up, I don't think you should be brainwashed into thinking that desiring the opposite sex is a sin and that you're doing something wrong, because that's how I was being brought up. Um, and I think this is why a lot of guys tend to stray away from religion as well, because they do a good job on trying to shame you for your sexuality. And I'm not ashamed anymore. I don't feel no shame in looking at a woman in a sexual light, because you're a man, for crying out loud. I mean, that's normal. That's natural. You know, it's nothing to be ashamed about. But, you know, b- the way I was being brought up, it was brainwashing me into thinking that I was doing something wrong when I really wasn't. You just a man. That's the way you were made. That's normal. Um and if I was a parent, and especially if I had sons, there's no way in the world I would tell them that lust is a sin. My mother told me stuff like crucify the flesh and all this old nonsense. That's what they tell you in church. Um, you know, that's nothing to tell, especially a male child. That just go to show you that these mothers don't know what they're doing. Um, if I was a father, I would just tell my sons the way things are and just leave it at that. Like I wouldn't dare try to shame my sons for their sexuality. But when you're growing up religious, you're being shamed for your sexuality and you're being brainwashed into feeling guilty for something that's perfectly normal. Any medical doctor will tell you that certain things is normal. Um when and one of the reasons to why I wouldn't brainwash my kids into thinking that I wouldn't brainwash them telling them that lust is wrong, because lust is everywhere. It's in the magazines, it's in the music, it's in the movies, you know, it's all over the internet. So, you especially for a man, you're not gonna get away from lust, you know. That's just a normal thing. But when you're being raised by certain parents and you're being raised religious, you'll be feeling guilty over something that you shouldn't be feeling guilty over. And as a man looking at a woman, thinking about women all the time, lusting for women, that's not something that you should be feeling guilty over. You know, that's perfectly normal, and that's why as a full grown adult now, I don't feel no shame in lusting because you a man. Ain't nothing to be ashamed of. That's what men do, you know. It's always, it goes back to the parents, what kind of parents you're being raised by, because being raised by the wrong parents, being raised by parents that just don't have a clue about what they're doing, when you have those types of parents, it can truly stunt your growth and stunt your development. you know Having parents that just, they just don't have a clue. You know, that's why it's good to have parents that got their head on right, parents who are open minded, parents that know what they're doing, you know, because, you know, you got some parents that just don't have a clue about how the real world operates. And you got a lot of parents, they can stunt their development, they can stunt their children's development uh, without them even knowing it. Um, That's why I say if I was a father, there's no way I would try to shame my son, especially if I had sons. There's no way I would try to shame, you know, their sexuality. A man's desire is stronger than a woman's desire. So there's no way I would try to shame my son's sexuality, and, make them feel guilty for something that's perfectly normal. Um, some of you guys can relate to this as well, especially if you was raised, you know, in a certain household, and if you had certain types of parents that groomed you to be a certain way. I love R&B music. R&B music is full of lust. That's the basis of R&B music. So I mean, I mean, I had to come to terms and learn to understand that it's not a sin to desire a woman. You're not breaking no law for, desiring sex or desiring a woman or even looking at women in sexual ways. You're a man, for crying out loud. And I'm just glad that I'm not bound by that guilt anymore. That guilt that used to have me consumed. But let me know what you guys think about lust. Because, when you're raised religious, they tell you that it's the worst thing in the world and that you're destined for hellfire. But just let me know how you feel about this. And I felt this would be an interesting topic to talk about. And I'll be back real soon. Been another late night discussion. Have a good one.